The topic for today's first panel discussion is Reimagining Leadership and the Workplace. So may I request Mr. Saquib Ahmad, who is the moderator for this panel discussion, to please join us on stage. Mr. Saquib is the Country Managing Director, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Iraq SAP. Can we have a round of applause, please? May I request Mr. Asif Jooma to please come on stage. Mr. Asif Jooma is the CEO of Lucky Core Industries Limited. May I request Mr. Amir Shehzad to please come on stage. He is the Director at Unity Foods Limited. May I request Ms. Saira Awan to please join us on stage. She is the President of TCS Private Limited. I guess she's here. May I request Ms. Saadia Naveed to please come on stage. Ms. Saadia Naveed is the Deputy Managing Director of English Biscuit Manufacturers Limited. She has also served as the first ever female President of Management Association of Pakistan. May I request Mr. Mohammad Shoaib to please come on stage. He is the founding CEO of Meezan Investment Management Limited. May I request Mr. Humayun Akhlaq to please join us on stage. He is the CEO and Country President of Schneider Electric and Solutions and Services. Mr. Humayun Akhlaq is the Vice President and Executive Committee member of Management Association of Pakistan. The last speaker is Dr. Mohammad Imran. May I request to please join us on stage. He is the Group Head of Bank Alfalah Islamic.
I think it was a very hard-hitting session by Asfar. Everything that was talked about is absolutely correct. And the food of thought for all the people in this room is about how to make that leadership change. हम ये बातें तो हमेशा कर लेते हैं कि यार ये प्रॉब्लम्स हैं हमारी लाइफ के अंदर और पाकिस्तान को ठीक होने के लिए ये चीज़ें करनी हैं, बट किसने करनी है? At the end of the day, it's us. The people in this room who are leaders in different roles that they are doing, they have to make this change, and that's the only way this change will happen. Otherwise, we will always be identifying the change, but will be not on the execution path of make this change. So I have now the very difficult task to change the mode of this discussion and bringing it to a little bit to the corporate side of the world. Now, the topic is very interesting. It's about, we see timeless leadership. We talk about overall the leadership style change. We talk about the workspace changed. Let's be very honest with each other. The people in this panel that we are talking about must have an experience of 20 to 25 years in their respective fields that we are doing over here. And the leadership style in the last 20 to 25 years has completely changed. It's a different world. It's a different way of dealing with the young guns that we have today. It's absolutely, many of the managers have not met physically their people that they have hired because all is going into that remote world. The offices are finishing and our drawing rooms are becoming our offices as we'll move forward. The connectivity with the people that we talk about, where we see, feel in the eyes of the people and going away, and we are more the slaves of the Zooms and the Microsoft Teams to judge the person on the other side on the reality as well. All this has happened. All this is going to happen. And during this time frame, we are all expected to grow the leaders. We are expected to make our companies more profitable, and we are expected to give the outputs that are required over here. So that's the theme of the discussion today. I will start the discussion, Asif, from you coming over, and we'll see, the main purpose of the leader is to see that how the silos can be finished between the organization, how they can see this bureaucratic approach between different departments can be done in a much better way, where the people can be seen opposite to each other, and you can feel in the moment, the tense meeting, where the things can go right or where the things can go wrong. Well, with this all remote management and team management that we are talking about, how the leadership now will go forward and how these topics can be managed.
Yeah, is it working?
Yeah.
Thank you, Saquib. First of all, I'd like to thank MAP for giving me this opportunity to come here and share some of my thoughts on a topic which is actually very, very dear to me, because I think leadership is absolutely pivotal and key to the success of any organization, whether it's a macro organization, which is a country, or a micro organization where we operate, right, which is our corporations. Asfar actually left me with one very, very interesting thought that really resonated with me, which is, in my view, really embodies the paradigm shift that leadership needs to make. And when I look around this room, and it was actually a young colleague of mine, and by the way, thank you very much, Saquib, for saying 20 years of experience. I've got nearly 40. Okay? But as we walked in, this colleague who was with me and sitting here in the audience said, wow, there's so many young people. And it's true. I was truly, truly amazed. And I think we've got to give, because Asif mentioned to me, he said, you know, we started a new category of membership at the MAP, which was the student memberships. And we did that whilst I was leading the organization. I think that was a great initiative, because actually we are not the leaders, they are the leaders, because they demand of us. And if we don't actually come up to their expectations of how organizations need to be structured, operated, people empowered, they will just walk. And and unless you actually have that key talent, you won't have a thriving business or organization. So coming back to as for the point you made when we were talking about the country, and I'm going to stay completely away from politics, even though I was dying to jump up and kind of give you some of my views. You talked about an endemic problem, and the endemic problem was lack of collaboration. And that is, for a leader, one of the most important elements, is actually encouraging and inculcating a sense of collaboration over competition. Unfortunately, in corporations, where a leader is not effectively being able to empower, give people the space to operate, demonstrate the agility, demonstrate the ability to accept a contrary point of view, and then actually get a collaborative discussion. And it doesn't have to be a physical discussion. It can actually be a remote discussion. But once everyone has an opportunity to present their idea, and then the leader's role is actually to put all the egos aside, right, and particularly his or her own ego, and come up with the most appropriate way forward for that particular issue or that you're dealing with. So, so collaboration, empowerment over control. When I started working, forget questioning your senior management, you couldn't even walk past their office. Today, a management trainee, because my office door is always open, so a management trainee in our company can actually walk in and challenge me on something that I may have said in a town hall. Unthinkable. It was absolutely unthinkable. But that is the world today. And we talk about Gen Z and Gen Y. I mean, there is always generational changes. But what today technology, what communication, what awareness has brought to the table is something that we must recognize and be sensitive to. And this, to me, is an integral part of any leader's role.
I think very rightfully said over here, leaders need to change the way they have been approaching to the young guns that we are talking about. Which leads my next question overall, and sir, coming to, Amir, to you. When we used to go to our offices, apart from the meeting, there was a chit-chat.
Yeah.
There was a corner coffee meeting. There was 3 group of people sitting together, talking to each other, politics around in the office. There was a lot of people meeting each other, and eventually, रिश्ते में आगे जाके उनकी ज़िंदगियाँ बनना शुरू हो जाती हैं offices के अंदर. All this is happening in the office environment that we are working on day-to-day basis, and now we are going to the remote offices over there. And the office is not about only the meeting, it's a social place. Yes. How in this new environment, which is becoming more and more remote, the social bonding and the team getting together can happen now in the new leadership style?
Thank you, Saquib. First of all, I think this is extremely, extremely important what you just mentioned. I mean, work environment is not just, or should not just be a work environment. As Asif just mentioned, times have really changed. We're looking at environment which is more interactive, number one, where ideas flow more easily. I'll just give you an example of my organization. We've grown tremendously, mashallah, in the last 4 years. Our top line has grown in multiples in the last 4 years, and that has only happened because of the fact that the senior management was open to new ideas, open to executing new ideas, not in a rigid form, but taking feedback from the employees and from the teams who were actually on the ground, getting those executions happening. Actually, I mean, in this hybrid environment it provides flexibility, yes, but then again, as you mentioned, there's a level of discontinuation, there's a level of disconnection, because as you just mentioned, work environment is just not work environment. I mean, especially for a leader, it is very important to interact with your team in a physical environment so that you understand the ability of each and every team member. You provide them the space to grow and to perform. And the interaction amongst the team members is also very critical because they find a place for themselves within the group so that they can perform in the best manner that they can. I mean, my example is, as Asif just mentioned, my door is always open. My sleeves are always rolled up. I never wear a tie. That is because of the fact that I'm open to new ideas, I'm approachable, and I'm ready to jump in if my team requires any assistance from my experience in whatever they're doing. At the same time, offering them the space to perform to the best of their ability. Because leadership has to be, you have the potential to be a leader, but it has to be cultivated. And the only way it can be cultivated, in my opinion, is that you give them the kind of space where they can perform. Of course, they will make mistakes. But you are the leader, you're supposed to give them that confidence that they can maybe be a little out of their comfort zone to see what their ability is. And for the organizations who are growing, they need those leaders to take the baton and run when we are to be replaced. So that is extremely important. So I think this hybrid environment is providing the challenges, which I feel I'm not a big fan of remote working because, of course, when it is required, it should be done. But because of the fact that the point that I've just made, and that social interaction is extremely important because it brings the best of your employees, and that is extremely important.
Yeah, you just reminded me, the people who are like me with white hair or the people with no hair, it's very difficult for them to go into that remote working environment because they are built like this from the very start. And the change acceptance is very difficult for us. And when I talk to my son today, he questions me out over there, why I have to go to an office when I can give a certain output that is required for me for work, why I will be judged that I'm a better person working from home. It's a mindset shift.
Just a quick point. I mean, it's especially for your son. It's not just the output that you're looking at. We can get output from ChatGPT today, right? But it's more than that. It's the interaction that is required, the social setting, and how you build your team. That's extremely important because they are going to become the future leaders.
Absolutely.
That's how you build collaboration as well.
Collaboration, the mindset change. Saira, coming to you, and the question will be, we'll start a little bit on the background. I started my job back in 90s. It was very difficult to meet the manager's manager because the room's doors were closed, you highlighted today. Today, the approach is absolutely there. I started the remote working back in 2012, and I had a young guy from Gujranwala who was shifted to Islamabad. And after 7 months of the working from home, he came to me and said that I want to resign. I said, why? Why you want to resign? We have started something so nice over here. He said that every morning at 10 a.m., first of all, I work from my drawing room. And every morning at 10 a.m. वो सफाई वाली जब कमरे में आके सफाई करती है वो राउटर हिला देती है मैं बेगम को कह के थक गया हूँ I can't work in this one. Secondly, at 1 p.m. my wife will ask me every day घर पे तो हो जाके बाजार से रोटी ले आओ. I'm not able to get her ready that the working from home doesn't mean that I'm not working in that same environment. As of today, when we are entered the post-COVID era, when we have got that 65% of the youth that has started working from 20 age as well, what is the mentorship model and what is the message that is required for this youth to work in this difficult environment in terms of remote and office as well? What is the guidance?
Yeah, thank you, Saquib. I think, the speakers before me have highlighted the challenges of remote working. And I think, we should also just remember there are some very obvious benefits as a leader to the hybrid working model. For example, in our company, although we're a very operational company, and so we really need people on the ground, in the office, etc. But, we've also been able to, incorporate into our workforce a large number of working moms, who stay-at-home women who don't want to be necessarily, or who cannot be in the workforce. So I think the hybrid model allows for a certain amount of inclusivity and diversity, which would not have been there without it. The challenges are obvious. I think for the youth that has joined the workforce, a lot of them, Gen Z as we call them, they joined the workforce at a time when COVID was, just about starting, and a lot of them were furloughed or fired just as they were entering those sort of early days of making contacts and connections. So I think my advice to them really would be that, in terms of leaning in, they should try to, they have more of an onus on them to focus on collaboration and to volunteer for work opportunities and things which the remote working environment sometimes excludes, because it's very easy to take a back seat and just do the bare minimum, because employee engagement is not something which is easily facilitated. I think also the biggest challenge for us as leaders is that the company culture, which is such an integral part of, at least organizations such as ours, really does suffer when you have people, large number of people doing remote learning. So as leaders, you have to focus more on creating those opportunities for team building, for really connecting with the junior members who are looking for that leg up, looking for mentorship opportunities. So I think it's the onus is on both leadership as well as the employees themselves to really make this a priority, make engagement, collaboration, and volunteering, etc., a priority to get those opportunities within the organization to stand out.
Absolutely. And it reminds me that I was in a call of my region just 3 days back, and with reference to diversity inclusion, the Egypt team told us a very interesting example. They said that by government law, they are forced to have 5% workforce coming from special people, either who are blind or who has different issues in their life, but they have been forced upon, and based on that one, they showed that they have a team of 10 people, especially in their workforce, who were special people, but the output they are able to give either in the procurement side of the things, and I'm not talking about lower jobs, I'm talking about the jobs that are part and the growth pattern over there as well. And I was so happy to see that how that country has put in the special people in terms of diversity and inclusion over there. So very, very, very well said over there. Moving over, Saadia, coming to you, in old times, employee loyalty was the very much important factor. I remember my parents had a great pride about that they worked in a government organization for 35 years. And the first time I used to make a change in my job, they were saying, you are an unloyal person, you are not thankful to your organization, you are changing. That's the mindset that we are coming today. Now, in the era of today, how we can get the employee loyalty, because they are working in different places, they are working for different companies, their loyalty is for the output of the work, but I think for their organization, how can we make sure in this current era of leadership and change management to get that employee loyalty from our employees?
Thank you so much, and thank you for providing me with the opportunity to be a panelist here. And Asfar, it was really good to hear from you. It was very insightful. And yes, we are talking about the growth of the organizations and how can we have that unparalleled growth in future, because obviously all of us have a strategy which we are working upon, but it is very, very challenging, and it's very sometimes frustrating when we hear about what's going around in our country. But still we are working very hard and we are striving our way forward. So coming to your question, well, I don't think that we can measure the amount of time spent by employees physically at their workplaces. It, I feel, is the mutual trust and respect that gives the motivation, the advocacy, and the passion with which the employees are working in the organization. I do remember one of the interviews with Steve Jobs, where he emphasized on the mutual trust between the employee and the organization, and that was the most significant factor for the organization's success, and especially stressing upon the collaboration, the recreation, and the culture that prevails in the organization. So that is very, very important. Other than that, what EBM, as a very, very, mashallah, successful organization and a growing organization, so we have tried to build in these elements where the employees do trust the organization, and we have this clarity on the EVP, which is the employee value proposition. And that employee value proposition is something with which the employee tends to understand what is expected out of him and what the organization will be giving to them. This is, again, I must say, it should be very clear. Communication needs to be very clear. It should be deep. It should be something which, even with the vision and the mission of the company with which we all work, that is also sort of a input from everybody to drive that, the growth actually. So this is, in my opinion, very important. Then it is also the value system or the culture of the organization, which should be definitely very, very clear, and it should be shared for the employees to have that trust in the organization. These are very important. Like, we in EBM do believe that our people need to be communicated the strategy, the vision, the mission, and we have developed sort of a system where through the e-portals or through the learning and development, the training, because they also need to be told what is in future for them, for their career development opportunities. And this definitely builds that loyalty with the organization and for the employees to stay on with the company. The other thing is, again, working or driving with a purpose, which EBM has definitely a shared purpose. They have, do believe in nourishing lives, hearts, and communities, which down the line, each and every employee, each and every partner is, it knows about it. And that gives that loyalty to the employee with the organization, that yes, we are working with an organization which has a purpose and which is there for for growth. And we have also incorporated the infinite mindset, which is, again, not only getting the result or getting where you have to be. It's not being number one or being the largest. It is, again, leaving a legacy. It is, again, to undo what you have done and move forward, which is, again, the growth that we see in our employees and in the organization. So these are small things which I think the future leaders should be able to understand and to think about, that how can they be able to, because corporate world, definitely when we talk of the global Gen Zs and the millennials, we also need our future leaders to be thinking in those lines. We need to be inclusive, and we need to be, as you spoke of gender diversity, and you spoke of special needs. Yes, that is also in our law also, it is there, that you have to have at least 5% of your workforce in the, with special needs, whether they are special people or transgenders or, again, women. And the hybrid model, we haven't adopted. Of course, in the pandemic, we had to. And again, a company which is purely operations, when we do want people to be there, we have to develop certain norms where one can be able to actually involve the people.
I think very nicely explained, and as you just highlighted, the youth of today, they want to be part of a culture. Previously, you want to be part of an organizational name on their CV. But today, it's not about how big the organization is, it's about that they want to be associated to a culture.
One thing I just wanted to share was, again, Martin Luther King once said that for the change makers, as you mentioned, change makers, that change makers should accept the finite disappointment, but should be able to, but should not lose hope in infinite. Should not be losing, should not say no to the infinite hope, which is so relevant. That this is the infinite mindset we are talking of, that yes, you have to be there, accept your weaknesses or accept what has gone wrong, but with that, just move forward. And
I think I will finish your point on this, that I interviewed a lady 3 years back, and I was trying to hire her, and at the end I asked her, do you have any question? And she asked me on the first question, what is your plan for me for next 3 to 5 years? Honestly, I was shocked. I could never have imagined that I could have asked this question to the person who's interviewing me, but the youth of today, they exactly want to understand where they are landing up and what is in there for them in the organization there as well.
Other than personal professional development, they really want to know where is this company going, right? So that's linked to your point about purpose. I think what companies lose out in this environment, in interpersonal interaction, they can perhaps make up in having a very purpose-driven organization that will help in retention of the younger staff, at least.
Yeah, so, sorry, I've been under time pressure, so trying to manage it on that one there as well. Shoaib sir, coming to you. Has corporate leadership changed? And since you are coming from Meezan Bank, and I know that Meezan Bank did great work in artificial intelligence and especially using it for the leadership designs as well, how do you see that artificial intelligence help you in managing the leadership and overall in your organization?
Okay, thank you very much, Saquib, and thank you very much, the organizers, for having me here today. Now, leadership is certainly a very broad subject, and certainly I will just focus on just one or two important areas that I feel that there has been a tremendous change, and the change is actually not only because of the pandemic or because of the different technology, but the change, I think one of the important things is that traditionally the leadership style has been that the guidance, the direction used to come from the top leadership, from the management, from the top management, from the CEO or from the board of directors. And today, as we just talked about, because of the new generation, their mindset, one of the important things as a leader is to ensure that you use your resources in the most efficient and manner. So while there is, in today's leadership, there is a lot of focus on use of technology, on new skills, on efficiencies, but as a true leader, I think one of the very important things which is sometimes missed out is to understand the strengths of your people. The HR management, the management of your HR resources in the most efficient manner is very, very important. Now, certainly, as we all know, that every human being is different, and they have different skill sets, and they have different capabilities, and their reaction to different situations is different. So if I tell something to you, maybe you understand it in a different manner. I tell same thing to Saadia, she may have a different interpretation of that. So as a true leader, I think the most important work of a leader is to ensure that he or she empowers the human capital that they have. And that is actually the key catalyst for the growth of an organization. So for a leader, I think it's very important that not only he ensures that he inculcates the same leadership skills in his subordinates, immediate subordinates, but to develop that culture. So if an organization has like 100 managers, a true leader, the role of a true leader is not to be leader and let others be the subordinates. His job is to develop those 100 leaders for the future. And that can actually change the culture of organization. And from the perspective, and we just talked about the mission of Saira talked about the mission of the organization. So at Meezan, when we started this journey about 20 years ago, as we know, it's a faith-based organization where our vision is to make Sharia-compliant investing a first choice for the investors. And that is actually the vision and the mission that is keeping the employees together. And we have been very successful, alhamdulillah, during even these COVID times. We were able to grow 200% in the last 3 years. So I think from the perspective of the leader, one of the important areas I said is empowerment and understanding of people. The second important thing, because the world is changing very fast, and that is an important area to look at, is innovation. Now, when we are talking about innovation, one has to understand the difference between exploitation and exploration. So a true leader has to exploit and explore at the same time. There are certainly a business model that you're running at any point in time. So you have to ensure that it's generating right revenues, you are improving your processes, but at the same time, one has to focus on the new areas and to innovate. So from that perspective, the concept of ideation, incubation, and scale is very important. And what we have seen is that there are organizations where they've done very well in their existing business model, but when it comes to innovation, they have failed. Nokia is one example we are all aware of. We all used to love Nokia phones, but now how many of us use Nokia today? We moved to iPhone or Samsung because they disrupted, they came up with the new ideas, they embraced upon and they actually acknowledged what the customer needed and made the right use of technology. So that is again a very, very important area which requires a lot of attention of the true leaders, not only to come up to actually continue with the existing business model, but to continue to reinvent and re-challenge the existing model. Thank you.
Yeah, I think very, very well pointed out. The leader is the one that when he leaves or she leaves the organization, systems should work. Because majority of the times we say that the leader has gone in the organization and goes down. That's not leadership. Leadership is the one who creates leaders, and then he moves or she moves on from that one. That's the way we can grow on this one. A little closer. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So he basically mentioned that every individual has a specific set of skills that they're good at, and for the leader, it's very important to have those skills identified, understood, and then used in a way that gives the best result for the organization. Yes. And that's the kind of thing that is required for a physical contact. So that's something that I just want to.
Good. Humayun, moving to you. Future of works, this theory that is all across the world at this point of time. We know majority of the multinationals are closing their offices all across the world. We are talking about what is the impact of future of works in our day-to-day lives. And especially after the post-COVID era, how has the new millennial, how's this new young guy who's coming into this environment, how he has to get prepared for the future of works that is going to hit us, either we like it or not?
Yeah. No, thank you, Saquib. It's a very interesting question, and the reason I was smiling because I get asked this a lot, and especially, and so my message, especially to the younger generation, is that, and this is something I think most of us sitting on this platform we understand as leaders, is that for the younger generation, set the culture, and it's the responsibility of the leader to set that culture, moving away from task orientation to result orientation. And I and Saquib would vouch for this. We work for global organizations whereby we get measured at the end of the third month on how we did. My manager never asked me whether I'm in office, I'm at home, I'm at the club, I'm at the school. No such conversation. Whatever I produce at the end and deliver at the end of the third month, that's what counts. Now, so that is what I think with this, the way the world has changed post-COVID and this whole adaptation, and I had so many conversations, literally, and we have some of our genuine challenges in the social environment that we operate. And there were some colleagues who came and either did not have the right infrastructure at home or the reliable infrastructure, and then they were family issues like some of what you mentioned. But again, as leaders, we have to, the first thing, which I propagate a lot amongst my colleagues, and some of them are here in the audience, is that as a leader, first we have to be honest to ourselves, and we have to do the right thing for the organization. Now, in some cultures, that may not be accepted so easily, but at the end of the day, this is what business is. This is what leadership is, to be honest and direct, and make it result-oriented. Don't hide behind, excuses that there are 101 ways to skin a cat, and it's all possible. So the other quick comment, so it's doable, and this is going to be the future. I mean, we're seeing it in Europe and the US, even in the Middle East. This is the future. We have to adapt ourselves. The sooner we do it, the better it is. And my message to the younger generation in the room, and also because I get also, taking a cue from you, Saquib, I got asked a question by one of the appointees that, where do you see me going in, this 3 to 5 years time? And so my answer was that it's all up to you. Where do you want to go in there? And I quote my example to them. I said, the job that I've had over the past 25 years, I've never, really gone into the office or to work with the expectation that I'll have this job beyond 3 months. It's up to me. If I produce the results, and that actually puts me in a run or fight against myself, that every quarter after quarter, I have to do better. And the better I do, the more I contribute to the organization, the more value I drive for my customers, my partners, my colleagues. And that's the mindset we need to have. I think there were a lot of, COVID has taught us one thing, that a lot of things that we took for granted pre-COVID, we can't in today's world. And the sooner we accept this reality, the faster we adapt to this changing environment, the better it is for us. I mean, yes, organization and the work and the companies will benefit, but do it for yourself. Be honest to yourself that this is the right thing to do, and this is the way it's going to be.
Very, very, very clear. And as I always say, that the boundaries are not anymore there. There are no geographical boundaries in this corporate world. Anybody can work for any country across the world. Thank you very much, Shoaib. I know you have a meeting in the State Bank, so for sure you can leave it there. But I can tell you one thing that is there, that we need to adopt this future of works. We don't have a choice. Imran sir, just coming to you, and a hard-hitting question. We always hear that leaders are born leaders. हम leadership किसी में पैदा नहीं कर सकते. They are there. Tell me how technology today can help making the leaders, because there is a very important aspect that technology is doing an impact. Can technology do this?
Thank you, Mr. Saquib. So it's $1 million question. Are the leaders born, or they can be made? That takes us back to the psychology of leadership. So there's a fantastic book written by Dr. Carol Dweck. The name of the book is The Two Mindsets. She is a professor of psychology at Stanford University, and she tells about the two mindsets. One is the mindset of the followers. That's called the fixed mindset, and I think I've also talked about it in one of the sessions today. The second mindset is the growth mindset. That's the mindset of the leaders. The good news is, bad news is people are born with a certain mindset. They are born with a fixed mindset or the growth mindset. So that's why we call some people born leaders. We can observe it in the schools, in our universities. We can observe it in our office environment. There are people, when they walk, they look like leaders. But the good news is that you can teach a person to transform from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. Now, how this transformation takes place, that's how you teach leadership. So there are 4 traits that if you teach a person, then the person can transform from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. So what those 4 traits are? The first one, the leader has to have a clear vision. Vision is the key. So what is a vision? Vision is the picture of the future that I want to see. The example, Asfar, I think your talk was inspirational, a bit gloomy, but I think we should all be optimistic, just like yourself. When you go to sleep, you're optimistic. So the optimism is that there are examples of countries which were literally in a bad shape, even worse than us. The latest example is Singapore. In the 1960s, they were really going down because of the communal rights that were going on. A country that doesn't have any agricultural land, a country doesn't have any direction at all. A leader comes in, Lee Kuan Yew, makes a vision, and the vision statement was very simple. We want to be the #1 country in the world in terms of trade. That's it. So be it the land trade, be it the trade through sea, or the trade through air route, they became #1. Singapore Airline is the #1 airline in the world. Singapore Port Authority is the #1 port authority in the world. Singapore Port is the International Court of Arbitration for global conflicts. Right now, as we talk, the population of Singapore is less than the population of Nazmabad. It's 57 lakh, 5.7 million. And what are the foreign exchange reserves of Singapore? $287 billion. So 5.7 million people, given a vision, can generate $287 billion. So that is one. The second is the leader should be adaptable. And especially in these times, and during COVID-19, we have seen any organization, any country that is adaptable to change can produce results. So the example is South Korea. South Korea, again, was, after the Korean War, was in a very bad shape. They had a leader by the name of Park Chung-hee. He made a vision that we will earn in dollars and will spend in the local currency. We are doing the reverse. We earn in rupees and spend in dollars. So what did they do? When the companies came them for having license, he said, fine, you want to do work? Do it outside Korea. So, and can anybody tell me which is the company which built Burj Khalifa? It's Samsung. Samsung C&T is the company that has built Burj Khalifa. Who has built the Petronas Towers in Kuala Lumpur? It's Samsung C&T. So you want to build a barrier town, build it in Riyadh. And Malik Riaz can do it better than most of the people. So earn in dollars, spent in the local currency. That is adaptability. The third, the most important one, is influence and inspire by example. The example is our own founding father, Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. We are all talking about the Tosha Khana case these days. Let's see what the founding father was like. He was on the deathbed, counting the last days of his life in Ziyarat. He was not eating anything. The doctor had said if he doesn't eat, he will not be well. So once he had his dinner, and he called Fatma Jinnah, and he said, who has cooked the food, Fatma? And she said, just, Mr. Jinnah, have your food. And he said, no, first tell me, who has cooked this food? And she said, it's your cook. From where has the cook come? She said, well, you are not eating well, so I asked the cook to come from Mumbai, from your old home, and he has come over there to Karachi, and then all the way to Ziyarat to cook the food for you. He said, how did he come? He said, well, a plane was coming, an official plane was coming to get some of the files signed, so I asked the cook to come into that plane. He said, Fatma, what have you done? It was an official flight. How can you ask my personal cook to come to that flight? He called the director of civil aviation, asked him, what is the cost of this flight? Took out his checkbook, write down a check in the name of government of Pakistan and deposited in the government treasury. That is inspirational leadership, setting standards by example. And last but not the least, and the most important one, taking the responsibility of success and failure. And the example is ISRO. ISRO is Indian Space Research Organization. Dr. Abdul Kalam, who was the president of India, he was a rocket scientist, so he was managing the technical aspects of it. The president of ISRO was Dr. Satish Dhawan. It was the 1970s, India was going through an economic crisis. They thought that since Pakistan has already entered into the space age, we'll launch our own satellite. So they made the arrangements, everything was done, the media was arranged. Dr. Abdul Kalam was the guy who was behind it from a technological perspective. Dr. Satish Dhawan, of course, was a management head of the organization. They pushed the button, the satellite went into the orbit, came crashing down in the Bay of Bengal. The media got into frenzy. They said, you have drowned billions of crores of rupees in the Bay of Bengal. Next day was the press conference. The mistake was of Dr. Abdul Kalam. They didn't get the satellite right. Dr. Satish Dhawan came to Dr. Abdul Kalam and said, Abdul Kalam, you will not go and face the media, it will be me. He went, the media ripped his skin off. Dr. Satish said, 6 months, we'll go again for a second launch. After 6 months' time, ISRO was ready for a launch. This time they launched it. That was India's first satellite, went to the orbit perfectly fine. Next day, there was a press conference. Dr. Satish came to Dr. Abdul Kalam and said, you will be facing the media. Why? Because I am there to shoulder the responsibility for the failure. My team will go, and they will be there to enjoy the credits of the success. That is leadership. So these are the 4 traits: vision, adaptability, inspirational leadership, setting by example, and taking the responsibility both in the times of failure and success. If we teach these 4 things to our children, to our colleagues, to our business students, and to our leaders sitting in Islamabad, be it a technological platform or not, change will come.
I'm not going to summarize. You have explained it really well. So I will not go into that one. Very nicely explained on in terms of the leadership. I have a second question for the same panel over here, but I'm going to change a little bit over here because it will be unfair if I don't connect Asfar's hard-hitting speech also connecting to the panelist over here. I have 10 minutes left only for this panel. I will give you 1 minute each to the panelists, and I have the same questions. What you will change as leaders to take care of the points that Asfar highlighted is not going to change. At the end of the day, he was highlighting that if we are not going to change the system, it will happen again and again. The competence that we are talking about is not there over there. So I will request you, in your respective roles, only 1 minute each, what you will change to have the right leadership planted as your legacy in the respective domains that you are working. So we start from you.
Okay, so when it actually comes to, and we talked about grooming leadership, when it comes to grooming leadership, when it comes to a legacy, what is the kind of legacy you want to leave? I think it's very important for a leader to understand, and someone actually talked about a leader being honest with him or herself, is where their strengths are and where their weaknesses are. And to be able to bring the right skills together and be able to accept that they are not the last word on everything. Unfortunately, and this is, unfortunately, it's a bit of a cultural issue with us as Pakistanis, that we believe that if a leader is seen to be weak in any area, then he's not a leader. Which is why leaders kind of will impress their particular and drive their point of view, which may not be the correct in terms of how or the outcome. And both are equally important, right? So it has to be that being comfortable in your skin, being able to bring the different talents, and this is a bit of a hackneyed example because it's always given, but it is a timeless example, is to be a good leader, you've got to surround yourself with people who are better than you and accept that they are better than you. That doesn't mean that they're good leaders, right? So that's what I would.
Good. Amir, over to you.
Just a couple of points. Number one, I think just taking Asfar's points cue, step one, it's time where we reset ourselves. We press the red button, right? That means we need to today, as leaders, identify and pinpoint what we are in terms of our economy. Are we an agri economy, a service economy, whatever we are? I believe we are an agri economy. We have 2 assets. One, agriculture. Number 2, our population. Focus on these 2 things. These are the low-hanging fruits that we have today that can help us turn around in 2 seasons. That's number 1. Number 2, as leaders, as in my own capacity, I think today is the day when we set our vision. What do we need to achieve? As we just mentioned, that Singapore set a vision for themselves, and they went on that path. That is what we need to do today. Set a vision. If there's a lot of fog in front of us, we cannot see, but we can take the first step. As a leader, we need to encourage, or at least myself, we need to encourage our teams, my colleagues, that we need to take that first step. It doesn't matter if we cannot see too far ahead in the future. So we need to encourage that.
Good. Saira?
2 points. I think from an organizational perspective, given the challenging macro situation and the headwinds that we all face, I think that a true test of leadership is if we can really create centers of excellence wherever we are. And at TCS, that's really what we're aiming and aspiring to do all the time. And for 40 years, that's what we've done. So really, our own organizations, if they can be those sort of benchmarks of excellence, of growth, of really good quality human resource development, I think we'd be doing the larger economy and this country a big service too. So that's the first point. And secondly, personally, I reflected on your question, and I think I would measure my own success as a leader in terms of how many leaders I have been able to, at the end of my career, been able to really launch into the workforce. So, for me, I think that would be, and that's really the sign of, confident, empowering leadership. When you are a confident and empowered leader, you really have that ability to delegate and build other leaders around you.
Thank you. Saadia, over to you.
Gee, for me, I think as leaders, we have to be the role model and walk the talk. So, yes, as a country, we are seeing it's a turmoil situation. It is a bad situation. But as leaders, what are we doing about it, and how are we contributing towards it? So my message to the leaders, or we've tried, we are trying, and we have incorporated all that is required to build leaders and to pass on the true sense of leadership skills to your future generations or your future leaders. And that is one thing which is very important. We need to be inclusive, and we need to be diverse. We need to be having a shared purpose for our own selves, for living actually. And what is it that we are doing? So we need to be very, very focused, very optimistic, and think that what can we do for the growth of ourselves as well as growth of the organization. So this is very important.
Good. Humayun.
Yeah, so for me, Saquib, I think the legacy that I would want to leave, as and whenever I exit the workforce, is to leave the organization and every single colleague with a purpose of why, and that purpose must be beyond the job or the role or the function that they serve in the organization. Whatever we do, and this is the kind of culture I'm trying to inculcate in our organization, that everyone, regardless of the function or the role, they should every day, they should wake up and either come to office or work from home or attend meetings, but with a purpose that what we do, and in our context, because we are in the energy and power infrastructure management business, so from our perspective, the way I look at it for myself is that my job, my purpose is to serve K Electric, so that hundreds and thousands and millions of houses can have the power and can have the lights and the basic electrical functioning. The hospitals, which is another. And that so the economic well-being, the healthcare, the livelihood of people is what I like to impact through what I do day in and day out, and that's the purpose I like to leave with my organizations.
Thank you. Imran, coming to you.
So at Bank Alfalah, we have recently completed an exercise where the leadership team has chalked out a legacy statement. And a legacy statement is a statement that people will remember us in what way when we'll die. So the legacy statement for us that we have chalked out is, I was there for them. So I was there for them in the time of floods. We have given $10 million as a country to Pakistan for the flood relief. I was there for them when they were in the time of an economic challenge. We were there for them when the infrastructure of the city was not good. So building roads, building schools. The most important part that I was there for them is for us sitting in this city is that the basic problem, I think that is the core of the issue, is that in any country which has developed, it is always the port city that leads the growth. Always. It will be the Kuala Lumpurs, the Singapores, the New Yorks, the Mumbais of the world that will lead the growth. So it's just like you have a car which has a brilliant windscreen, Bose music system, alloy rims, radial tires, but the engine is not running. So unless and until the engine of the country, which is the port city, fixes its infrastructure, no matter how many talks we do, it's not going to work.
Thank you very much, team. I will just round it out by saying, in the previous session, as far highlighted, the competence is an issue. The continuity of the policies is an issue. Where the political system is not good enough, has to make a change on that one. What I can tell you, if we are today and the people in this room, they are there, they have an impact in this ecosystem that we are talking about. Which you have heard over there, we have talked about that what is leadership and what is the change that is required in the ecosystem of the corporate world. But what we are today over here, it's very important to us, for us, and take us as our responsibility to make this change. We talk about leaders. We take about leaders that we have to do it in our homes. We have to do it in our mohallas. We have to do it in our organizations. If we are not going to own this change of leadership, trust me, we will just be sitting across on the sofa and talking about the TV and talking about again that what is happening to this country. We are the change leaders. Just own it. Because the moment we own it, you will start thinking in differently. And do whatever you can do in the sphere that you are present over there. You don't need to change the whole world. You have to just take the change with the people around you. If we start doing it today, even in whatever role we are, I can tell you, this country will be a different country in 10 years of time. We are in a difficult time. We understand that one, but to be honest, we have to make the change and make the tough decisions today. बड़ा आसान है ये कहना कि यार मुझे क्या फर्क पड़ता है, मैं तो अफोर्ड कर सकता हूँ. But let's not go to these things today. Take that tough decision that I'm only going to buy the Pakistani products. Make it a point today that I'm not going to buy a car which is not made out of Pakistan as well. Try to make a change over there and say my kid will study in this country over there and will be a leader coming in over there. It's us. Honestly speaking, if we are able to make that change today, that is the impact that we can do best for the country. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for this panel, and I'm pretty sure you would have listened to that.
One suggestion to what Saquib you said, what can you do? In our own organizations, it is difficult for us to impact what the government should do. It's not impossible, but it's difficult. Associations, management association can do it. But in our own organizations, what does the country need today? GDP growth rate, employment, foreign exchange, and things like that. So perhaps if we look at our own organization, forget about for a moment the rest of Pakistan's problems that we all hear about, and see what we can do to contribute to some of these things. So that was just one suggestion. Two things which are very provocative and controversial also, but as food for thought from a leadership perspective. We need to differentiate between what is leadership and what are the traits of a leader. What is leadership? And I was talking to Alexander earlier, and I left some food for thought for him as well. What is leadership? And what are the traits of a leader? And I could talk a lot about it, but leave it as food of thought. Secondly, in leadership, must differentiate between what can leadership do and what good governance is, or what good management is. Sometimes we confuse the two. So what is leadership? And for me, as an observer, not as a trainer or a teacher as such, but as an observer, leadership is to get your people to perform a hell of a lot more than they could even imagine themselves. That is leadership. And good governance is be able to run a business better, and so on and so forth. So controversial, provocative, but what is leadership and what are the traits of a leader, and differentiation between good governance and leadership itself. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I will just say, can we get this leadership for our political leaders? That is the key for us. That's where we require the leadership there. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now I would like to invite Mr. Humayun Fudda, former President MAP, Mr. Farooq Junaidi, Council Member MAP, along with Mr. Talib Karim to please join us on stage and present mementos to our distinguished speakers. Mr. Ahmad Shehzad. Mr. Ahmad Shehzad, you're requested to please step forward and accept the memento. Ms. Saira Awan, you're requested to please step forward and accept the memento. Ms. Saadia Naveed, please step forward and accept the memento. Mr. Humayun Akhlaq, please step forward and accept the memento. Dr. Mohammad Imran, you're requested to please step forward and accept the memento. Mr. Saquib Ahmad, you're requested to please step forward.